question being hotly debated is, will the BJP carve out a new constitution post its 2024 victory? It's been less than a week since the nation has celebrated its 77th Independence Day celebration. But the politico-academia circle is rife with a thundering debate. Is it time to rethink the Constitution of India, set up a new Constituent Assembly, and draft a new Constitution? Bibek Debroy, who's a renowned economist, who currently is the chairman of Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister and is also chairman of the Finance Ministry's Expert Committee for Infrastructure Classification and Financing Framework of Amrit Kaal, is the center of the debate. His column, published on 14th of August 2023 in a leading newspaper, advocating much of what we debate begins and ends with the Constitution. A few amendments won't do. We should go back to the drawing board and start from the first principles, asking what these words in the preamble mean now: socialist, secular, democratic, justice, liberty, and equality. And he has marked equality in bold with an underline. We the people have to give ourselves a new constitution, says Bibek Debroy. Up till 17th afternoon, the call for action by Bibek Debroy hardly ruffled any feathers. Possibly it went unnoticed in the fanfare attached with the Prime Minister's speech emphasizing "Main wapas aunga." And then, as a deluge, a host of political outfits started questioning Bibek Debroy's intent as that of the ruling dispensation. Across opposition rank and file, the biggest question being tossed around was, will the BJP embark upon rewriting the constitution if they came back the third time with a thumping majority? Is Bibek Debroy voicing the government's intent? Does the Prime Minister's office subscribe to these radical views? With the flutter on social media platforms, which became intense, the Economic Advisory Committee clarified that the views of Bibek Debroy are his own. The EAC does not subscribe to his views, and neither does any part of the government machinery identify itself with the thoughts expressed in his column. The debate rages on as numerous political leaders now find a sinister plan behind this seemingly innocuous write-up by Bibek Debroy. But the question is, was it so innocuous? Not at all, sir. Now let's delve into the write-up. Leaving aside the first 500 words of his column, the main body starts with the basic question. This 2023, 73 years after 1950, our current constitution is largely based on Government of India Act 1935. In that sense, it is also a colonial legacy. We should start with first principles, as in the Constituent Assembly debates. What constitution does India need in 2047? Herein, Mr. Debroy brings into question the colonial legacy of our constitution, a legacy which the Modi government is hell-bent on debunking. The biggest example of this are the new criminal laws which are set to overthrow the Indian Penal Code devised 135 years ago by the British. A majority of experts have called it old wine in a new bottle. Yet the government of the day rushed it during the last hours of monsoon session with the caveat that the proposed three laws would heave off the colonial past. Need I explain further to submit that the use of the term colonial is good enough for a whole new set of people in the country to debunk the constitution into something drafted and created by the so-called free Indians aspiring to lead the nation to its 100th Independence Day celebrations in 1947. The next point that should raise the hackles is, what's the Supreme Court's role and how much supervisory control does it have over the High Courts? Little if we go by the Constitution. What about judicial appointments? What about the role of the governor? The state's three organs are the executive, legislature, and judiciary. These are articles in the Constitution that impede executive efficiency. Please consider this line of thinking with the utterances by former Law Minister Kiran Rijiju. Virtually for 2 years, the former Law Minister was at loggerheads with the judiciary. He criticized the selection process of the judges, the entire collegiate system, called it arbitrary and self-serving, promoting brotherhood of judges. Kiran Rijiju vociferously decried the judicial administration of justice when the executive abdicated its functionalities, called it judicial overreach and interference in the role of the executive, called courts a law unto themselves when they came to the rescue of individuals whose freedom, liberty, and rights were violated by the executive. Let's also not forget the admonitions by the Supreme Court when governors acted as state regents of the centre, overthrowing popularly elected governments in Goa, Maharashtra, and others. These admonitions were always regretted by the Modi government and berated in public, and voiced or called out by numerous BJP leaders. So when Bibek Debroy talks about revamping, limiting, curtailing the role of judiciary, subject to the question that the appointment process of the judges and the role of the governor in the states, all this cumulatively, doesn't it ring a bell? And how does Mr. Debroy desire to achieve this? He desires to get India a new constitution. And lastly, when Mr. Bibek Debroy writes, we should go back to the drawing board and start from the first principles, asking what these words in the preamble mean now. Socialist, secular, democratic, justice, liberty, and equality. He spells it all. These words in the preamble have always been questioned by the right-wing ideology, the right-wing RSS, that's Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. Since 1989, two concepts, socialist and secular, have drawn fire from the RSS. Socialist ideals have been questioned as vastitudes of left-leaning of the former Prime Minister Pandit Nehru and late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. And secular has been questioned on the basis of imposed Western terminology, because as per RSS, European nation heads were the head of church and government together, something which never found roots in India, as Indian rulers always ruled on the basis of dharma, which is not religion. Therefore, there is no need to amend the constitution. Rather, there was no need to amend the constitution and insert both these terminologies, socialist and secular, as the ideals for Indian citizens. Now let's come to the third terminology, democratic. Democratic, the very notion of democracy, is ingrained in the latent concept of Hindutva. So the right wing has always advocated the unnecessary inclusion of democratic as a terminology in our preamble. Likewise, the right wing has also denounced the concepts of equality, liberty, and justice. The argument put forth by the right wing ideologue is absolutely clear. Mahatma Gandhi advocated Ram Rajya in his speeches and pronouncements. Ram Rajya means equality, liberty, and justice to all. as it was followed during Lord Ram's rule when he ruled Bharat. So why include these Western notions in our constitution when the inherent and latent meaning of Ram Rajya laced with Hindutva is a summation of all? It is hence the questions raised by the chairman of Economic Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister with respect to the Constitution of India that hence assumes importance. What Mr. Bibek Debroy has questioned has been questioned by the entire right-wing ideologue since decades. But then the right-wing ideology never had a sustained predominance of ruling India for 10 years and looking forward to another 5 years post 2024 Lok Sabha elections. Therefore, the timing of the column is not just questioned, but the subtext which it tries to reinforce is the point of debate. Is the ruling dispensation toying with the idea of revisiting the Constitution of India post winning Lok Sabha elections in May 2024? Going by what Bibek Debroy has listed, it appears very much so. Thank you.